Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, No Worries, Strategies for Stressing Less. This is part 2, Intention. I hope you were here for part 1. If you weren't, there's a chance to review it on the web. Everything worth watching is available on the internet, including part 1 and part 2, which we're making right now. You'll be able to review that as well. We're so glad that you're here. Get ready to have some fun. I'm your moderator, Randy Clare, and I'm a Senior Communications Specialist here at PeaceHealth. But our speaker today is Susie Griffin, and she's the one with all of the answers. She's focused on a lot of different things, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. She handles issues for all of those. And Susie, welcome.
Thanks, Randy. Always appreciate your intro. Hello.
Now, you're a licensed massage therapist, but you're also a wellness coordinator and a wellness coach. And so is this like a lifelong adventure in learning about the human body and the human mind and how they connect and interconnect?
I think, yeah, for me, definitely. I like to say to my clients that I have a body. I didn't create it. I'm still learning how to use it. So yeah, I definitely think it's a lifelong journey.
Wonderful. And that horse that's there right now, is that part of how you release stress, going out for a nice horse ride?
Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes it grows me in being stressful too. Horses can have their own mind, so it's always an adventure. But yes, being outside on my horse, open space, definitely is one of my stress relievers for sure.
Well, take us through today's presentation. Help us reduce our stress and learn strategies for coping with it in the future. I'm
sure.
on board.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. So happy that you are here. So realizing that some of you attended our first part, our part 1, and some of you guys are new to us. Let's do a quick review of what we covered in part 1 so that all of our toes are on the same starting line. So in part 1, we focused our attention and increasing our awareness of how we personally react to stress. We identified what our dominant stress response is, either fight, flight, or freeze, and knowing that even though we have a dominant one of those, we probably implement all 3, maybe just at a slightly lesser degree. We also learned that stress is potentially all good. It allows us to be human. It allows us to express all of our human emotions. But most importantly, knowing that if our sympathetic nervous button is stuck on, how that can make us feel distressed and how quickly that distress can transition into disease. We identified internal and external feelings and signs of when we are feeling imbalanced and when we are in balance. We recognized and identified a go-to positive emotional word that helps to offset negative emotions that we feel when we are stressed. And we created our destination, our arrival point, our vision of feeling and looking and being our best self, and what it feels like when we are coming alive, when we feel like we are our best self. We recognize the importance of paying attention to our self-talk and how statements contain a lot of energy. And if we can tap into that energy contained in that statement just by turning that period into a question that incites and invites some compassionate, introspective work. And how breathing, the importance of breath, ties all of these 3 parts together. And just by recognizing how we are breathing, it automatically renders us into a more calm, less chaotic, and less stressed state. So what do we get to do today? We get to move all of that awareness, apply all that awareness that we learned in part 1 through some exercises to help gain perspective in building healthy and robust option and resource lists. So we can focus all of that awareness into a more efficient and positive intentioned way. We're going to recognize and utilize and implement some personal identifying statements and understand the importance of feeling vulnerable and being vulnerable and how that relies on trust and knowing what trust looks like and feels like. And when we are in a trusting environment, how that automatically makes us feel more safe and automatically allows us to stress less. We're going to implement our go-to word that we identified in part 1 and look at some wellness initiatives that we can add to our option lists. And it all starts with energy. So recognizing, becoming more aware, and paying attention to the energy resources that we have, implementing strategies and techniques to tap into those energy resources, and then practicing those strategies and techniques so we become more efficient at using our energy. So when we are in a stressful situation, we are becoming more efficient and we're stressing less, and it helps us recover from stressful situations. So we're building our resiliency. So this is our mantra over the 3-part series, is that we have to spend energy to get energy. And what this looks like is this. This is a visual depiction of a muscle contraction at a cellular level. So in order to make muscle contraction happen, we need to recruit energy, which actually creates a chemical bond which contains that energy. But in order to make movement happen, that process needs to happen over and over again. So that takes energy to actually break up that chemical bond to release that energy and start that process over and over again. And all of this has to happen and occur in the presence of oxygen. So if we do not have oxygen present in order to make this process happen, it can render us into a state called rigor mortis, which I think most of us can identify with as another state, which is death. So it is true, all of us have at some level a form of rigor mortis, so that contain energy. It's being inefficient, it's just stored in our body at some level. So when we are feeling overwhelmed or underwhelmed or experiencing a fight, flight, or freeze mode stress response, that can render us into an efficient state and having that contain energy in our body. So some of us have experienced this if we've gone to a massage therapist or if we've used myofascial release tools such as a foam roller, tennis balls, or one of those like rolling sticks on our muscles, and we've found those what's called trigger points, or those really concentrated points where there's knots. So that is a physical example of rigor mortis. So we are going to look at how we can tap into that stored energy, release it so that we become a lot more efficient. We have more energy to utilize. So here's another visual example. So this is an Etch-a-Sketch. Great example of how when we are in a stressful situation, so be it a day, a week, months, years, every time that we are in a stressful situation and we implement or recruit our stress response, a little line is drawn. So if those build up and we don't tap into that stored energy and release it in a more directed, intended, and positive direction, then our Etch-a-Sketch becomes quickly very full with little room to move and little room to breathe. So today we want to look at and do some exercises that help wipe our Etch-a-Sketch clean, give us a clean slate so that we can move more, better, efficiently, and breathe more. So this is our first exercise. I'm going to bring all of this up here. So knowing again that it's all about energy and that we can neither get energy, but we can tap into the energy that we already have and become more efficient. One of the easiest ways to do that is to really shine our light on our strengths, identifying what we're good at, because as a Susieism that I use for my weight loss clients, if you have to think about what you're doing, you're burning more calories, i.e. energy, doing it. So this is the opposite. So we don't usually have to think about doing something that we're good at. It's just innate, it's automatic. So if we're able to identify what we're good at, then we can practice and grow it and become a lot more efficient just by shining our light on our strengths. So attached to the webinar, you have this sheet, and I'm just going to go through a couple of examples here so you get an idea of where we're going with this. But wipe this clean for you and identify your own strengths. So for example, I identified one of my innate strengths as a possibilist. And the extended version or further definition or description of that is that I believe that I can see possibility in ideas and situations and in people. I love to do that. That is something that comes easy to me. So how do I grow that? What are ways in which I can feed that, nourish it, and grow it? One of the ways that I identified that I can do that is by spending time with out-of-the-box people, so creative people and in creative environments. That helps make me feel creative and thus shine the light on my strength of seeing possibility in ideas and people. And Randy had brought up a good point, is that sometimes it's really hard for us to identify what our strengths are. Sometimes that makes us look like we're bragging, but it really is something to honor. And in this situation, if we're talking about energy usage and becoming more efficient at using our energy in a stress-less way, this is what we can do. So another example is I'm a morning person. My apologies for all of you night people out there. So I have most of my energy innately in the morning. That's my extended version or a description of my innate strength of being a morning person. So how do I grow that? How do I become more efficient and tap into having more energy in the morning? I create me time. So I spend the morning time doing things that allow me to become more efficient and centered and balanced. So identifying those specific things and doing them in the morning really sets the tone for the rest of the day. So that is the exercise for shining your light on your strengths. So what is your innate strengths? And try and grow your list. So really shoot for, I have 5 here, no, I have 6 here. So shoot for at least 3, if not 5 or 6. And then what do you mean by that? What's your extended version or a further description of your innate strength? And then how do you grow that? And if you've got several options within one and how you grow one innate strength, even better. Because our soul food is going to be the source of our option and resource lists. So as we developed in part 1, our best self and coming alive description, we answered the questions by what are we doing? Where are we and who's with us? So knowing that life is out of our control and life does hand us some change that's out of our control, our option lists can be changed as well. So life can alter them, and if we spend time at growing them in situations and strategies in growing them, i.e. soul food, then we won't have a diminishing option and resource list. So I think all of us can relate to what that feels like when we don't have, when our back is in a corner and we don't feel like we have any options or we don't have a go-to resource list. So by spending some time and developing our innate strengths, growing our soul food and our option and resource lists, we're able to pull ourselves out of that corner and move forward. So here's another exercise. Here's another way of looking at growing our option or resource list. By answering the question, what shape are we in? So the first example is a really, really small circle. So what that means and what that looks like is if we go through life and we always have the same go-to action regardless of the situation at hand. So we kind of go back to the starting line. We can increase our bandwidth, i.e. our resiliency, so moving forward to the bigger circle, by implementing some options. So as we go through life, life presents us with different situations and we can learn from those situations and implement some options. But we always fall back on our innate strengths. So this is when we live too much on and shine our light too much on what we already know and what we already have, our innate strengths, our path of least resistance, where we don't have to think and we don't have to work on anything. So this might look in life like someone who wants change in their life. They want to lose weight or they want to quit smoking. And they try multiple times, but they're unsuccessful multiple times. So how do we break out of that and become a lot more efficient and move forward is we change our shape. So we want more of a triangle. So this is when, if you look at the bottom line, this is when we're increasing bandwidth and our resiliency. So again, we're exposed, we put ourselves in different situations which expose us to and give us the opportunity to learn from those situations and grow our option list so that we can become more successful if those same situations appear again. But the most important thing is that we change how we react, and we do that by living in the dark side or the dark slide. So we're not going to stay here long, but this is, so in part one we again, increased our awareness of self-talk and listened to how many times we did a statement, and usually those were energy containing because they were negative and they weren't moving forward. So we're going to, again, implement that awareness of self-talk and listen to when we're at that crossroads of either implementing and leaning on our innate strengths and our go-to reaction and bring us back into a circle, or we're going to go to the dark side and we're going to pay attention to what statement we use when we're faced with that choice. So for example, and we'll get to trust here in a second, but I wanted to get us out of the dark side. So for example, if I am, so we're going to go back to our innate strengths. So if we use my first example, or my second example, excuse me, of being a morning person. So usually, if we go to the opposite side, that's when we have depleted energy resources. So for me, it is at night when I don't have as much energy and I feel a lot easily stressed because I don't have that energy resource so close to hand. So I'm tired, I don't want to do or think, make any decisions, I just want to go to bed and press that restart button and get refreshed. However, it's at that moment first that we recognize that our energy resources are depleted. We pay attention to what our statement is, and for me, it's like, I'll do it in the morning. So when I feel like I'm going to be my best self and have the most energy. However, if we take a second, take a breath, realize that we just uttered that statement in our mind, I'll do it in the morning, put on the brakes and say, okay, what is the next step? What is the one thing that I can do that will allow me to have more time in the morning, which is the me time, which will set the tone for the rest of the day, which would give me energy throughout the rest of the day. So that is the dark side. So what statement, and we all have one, do we, when we're at the crossroads, say, I'll do this? Or, so some of the weight loss clients that I've come across, a lot of them have the same statement. It's like, if they're on a diet and they have what their go-to foods that are off their do not eat list, and then their diet, this is what I should eat. If they eat a donut and it's like, oh, well, I ate one donut, what's one more? So just paying attention when we're making those statements, take a breath, stop, and then reassess. What can I do? What is the next step that I can do that gets me to more of a triangle and less of a circle? So what we're doing is we're practicing moving forward even when we're stressed, even when our energy resources are low. So it's that time in practicing moving forward when we're stressed that becomes and makes us less stressed going forward. So this is our time to look at building our robust resource list and how important it relies on trust and what trust looks like. So there's a couple, Bob and Megan Shannon Moran, who developed this definition, these components that make up trust. And sometimes, at least for me, this was helpful in putting understanding to a feeling of why I didn't feel quite trusting in certain situations or with certain people. So benevolence is when you have someone that you feel has your back. Competence is that you know people that will be able to have the right tools in their toolbox and implement them to help you. So they know what they're talking about. Reliability is that they have incredible follow-through. They do what they say they're going to do. And openness is all the cards on the table. They have wonderful transparency with very healthy boundaries. They share what's needed to be shared at the time that it needs to be shared. And honesty, they just simply say what is true. So taking these components and being able to use those in building resource lists, both not only in friends, not only in family, but in professionals and in all professions, so medical, financial, etc. I mean, how wonderful is it to have a mechanic that you can trust, for example. So I kind of mentioned this before. This is our second exercise. So we shined our light on our innate strengths. Now it's time to spend a little time on the dark side, shining our light on the dark side by looking at the opposite of what our innate strengths are. So these are my examples. So again, just take them as a direction to help you in forming your own. Usually it's a lot easier for us to identify what our lesser strength is, and I use lesser strength here rather than weakness because we are using this to help us move forward. So something that we're going to grow. So usually it's the opposite of your innate strength. So for example, if I'm a morning person, I'm definitely not a night person. So I'm exhausted, I'm ready for bed, especially during winter when there's not a lot of sunshine and light. So what am I going to do? How am I going to grow? How am I going to help myself spend time on growing my lesser strength when my energy resources are low? I'm going to clean the dishes. I'm going to pack my lunch. I'm going to put clothes in my exercise bag for the next day. So I'm going to prepare for success for the next day, for the next week, so that I don't have to do that in the morning because, again, the morning time I can spend it on things that grow me. So wellness initiatives. So these are some considerations to put on your option list to help you feel that tap into that energy resource and make you feel more alive. So at the very beginning in the intro, Randy asked me about my horse, and that, yes, that is a stress reliever for me because it puts me outside. So go outside. Go outside, go play. It increases vitamin D uptake. It increases the opportunity to move, which is the opposite of one of our greatest risk factors, which is sitting. So we increase our environment, we increase our space, and it increases our opportunity to move. So it's mood altering, meaning that it lifts our spirit automatically. There is a lot of research in patients in hospitals. Their rate of healing increases, their recovery time increases. They are able to get discharged quicker if their room faces or has a view of any greenery, anything outside of a lake, trees, grass, park. So it is definitely one for increasing our well-being. And it stimulates our brain function. It increases our ability to become more creative. So volunteering, giving of yourself, giving of your time and resources to other people, it automatically increases our social engagement and our sense of purpose, and increases our confidence by doing something for the good of others, and it helps engage our mind. And then playing with animals or watching animals just simply play. There is, again, a lot of research on the reduction of blood pressure and heart rate, and the increase of the feel-good trusting hormone, oxytocin, by just simply touch, petting an animal. And then simply expressing gratitude. So taking time out of your day and thinking about what's going right in your world automatically brings you into the present, takes you out of the anxiety of thinking of what's in the future or any guilt or resentment that has happened in the past. And then play. So do you have an outlet of play in your life? That helps us to, again, express all of our human emotions. It's a positive outlet. And again, it engages the body for movement. So hopefully, now we're well on the way to the top part of this picture, regardless of how many and how much reality we experience during our day, week, or month. So hopefully the exercises will help you build your option list, build your resource list, shine your light on your innate strengths, spend some time growing your lesser strengths, and help you move forward towards your best self vision and feeling more alive. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you May 4th.
That is correct. Thank you, Susie. That was fantastic. And if you have any questions after this webinar, you can reach us via email at marketing@peacehealth.org. And there's another session to come. If you enjoyed today's session, please mark your calendar for Thursday, May 4th, Part 3, Reverberation, and that will also be from noon to 1 p.m. We're going to talk about meditation, boundaries versus barriers, assertive principles, the Seinfeld principle, which will be funny, and the 4 A's of absolution. At least I hope it's funny. I hope it's not a serious one. Resource list and handouts from today. If you go to our website, you'll be able to download those, and there's a free coloring book available as well. Watch your email for details on that. Sign up for our notices. Our monthly e-newsletter is available to you at peacehealth.org/email-sign-up, and that includes some health news, future webinar information, special offers, and even some upcoming local events. Thank you all so much for joining us here today, and I hope we'll see you back here again on May 4th.